natural inclination says God is not with me when it's not going well. And so there's a sweetness within these really hard seasons that drives us back to the cross to know the character of who God is and what he has done to save us. All right, let's begin. Yeah, we are going to talk about the wilderness season. And I think it is probably one of the hardest seasons. It's hard to really pinpoint why it's so hard. It's hard to articulate. It's that season where you you stepped out and you're trusting God, and it just feels like there's silence. Everything's quiet. Everything is like not happening the way that you thought it would happen. And that can be one of the most confusing seasons. And it's also like one of the times that a lot of Christians will walk away, not necessarily walk away from God, but they're going to go back to the comfort zone. And so they'll stay Christians, they'll stay following him, but it's sort of like, you know what? I tried stepping out of the boat and I sunk into the water, and I just freaked out, and I'm just going to stay in the boat. I'm not going to like risk anything because it's too scary. And the truth is, it is scary. It is hard trusting God because you don't know what he's going to do. So we're going to talk about it. But before I say more, I'm going to invite you to download the On Purpose Planner, where I'm going to help you figure out what it is that is on your heart to do for God and the action steps you need to take in order to do it. Which is kind of funny that I'm talking like inviting you to that in this video, but I'm going to do that anyway because I've learned that even when you do everything on your part, like you're doing everything you know to do, you're taking faithful action, that still doesn't mean that you're going to get the breakthrough or the open door or the whatever it is that you're waiting for from God. There's this part where when you are playing your part in his kingdom, it's not all on God because he invites us to be his partners, and it's also not all on you because there's still those seasons that are just confusing where it's almost like this. You're a Christian, but then you like step into that part of being a Christian where you're like, okay, God, I'm in. I'm not just going to worry about my life and my stuff and my concerns and what I want you to do for me. I'm in this for you. Whatever you want me to do, I want to play my part, and I want to be part of this thing called your kingdom. And then it's almost like he's like, great, let's go to the wilderness. And before you know it, you find yourself in this place of the wilderness, which can look very different for many of us. And sometimes it's like you're not even seeing it from the outside. And so sometimes, the loss of a loved one can throw us into those wilderness seasons. The loss of just things that we wanted to see happen, not happening. But I've also found that it can be the desire to be faithful with what God has called you to, that not happening, or other things just getting in the way of that also creates a loss and a heartache. And but I also find that, like, okay, so you've got two choices when you're in that wilderness. Because you know what I think. Hold on, no, I'm going to say the two choices first before I get distracted. You've got two choices. One where either you are like, okay, Jesus, I'm in. And then he takes you to the wilderness, and it's quiet, it's empty, it's bare, and you're like, well, enough of this. I'm just going to go back to what I was doing. Or that's choice number one. Or choice number two is to say, I am totally confused. I do not get this. I don't understand this, but I trust you. So please show me who you are. And it's that heart posture that sets you up to learn learn the lessons, learn the character and the personality of the God that we follow. Like always within going back to the Bible, where we're not going outside of the Bible looking for other truth, but everything that you learn about God has to be held up to the word of God, to and where we're letting go of everything that doesn't match the word, the Bible, but we're holding on to and seeking him in through or in his word, but it can be our circumstances that pushes us to that place of engaging with him in the wilderness and of holding on to him, and of just the heartache in that place and the confusion in that place causes us to not settle for anything less than him. And I can't tell you what that's going to look like for you. I couldn't even tell you what that looks like for me. But it's over the last 10 to 15 years. It just feels like there's this. I've been in this season, and even sometimes when I think I'm out of it, something hits again where you're stuck in this place of where you can't settle for like how do I put it into words? You're in this place where God has stirred up your heart to go after him, to go after the things that he's shown you, that he's invited you into. And so you can't settle for not doing that, but you also you're not able to like make that happen. And so my cat's going after my water. So this is so funny. She's in a very playful mood right now, and I moved my water and it's like moving a bit, and she's just watching it intently. Um, yeah, I don't remember what I was saying, but I think it was something with just when you're in that middle place. And I remember years ago going for a walk with my dad, and we were both just talking about this confusing place where you are, it's sort of like you finally get your priorities in order and you're like, okay, God, I'm in. My priorities are good, my intentions are good as far as right? Everything's good to go. And then you have an idea that you're going to act on, and you're like, this is good for God, this is good for people, this is like, it's just good, right? Everything, it feels like there's this green light, and then you start the process and it goes backwards, it goes upside down, it flip-flops all over the place. And I remember, because we were talking about this, and it's just like, this makes no sense. Like I'm thinking it's hard enough to get people on board with like to follow Jesus and to keep on following him, that you think that if it was me and I was God, then I'm like, I would okay, how do I say it? Like I remember just feeling like I wish that God felt a little bit more worried that I would give up. Because it's like I want to be in, and then it all goes backwards, and I'm like, isn't that kind of risky? Like I could quit, and yet it's God's wisdom, and it doesn't make sense. And I mean, the cross of Christ, him Jesus dying on a cross does not make sense. It's this upside down, totally backwards death, or life comes through death experiences that he leads us through and that he walks with us through. And if you can hear my son, he just giggled. He sounds like he's in distress. He's just having fun. But so there's these life experiences that we go through where you start to realize that Jesus is not just interested in the end result. He's not just like, yes, he can bring healing. Yes, he can bring about that miracle that you've been asking for, but there's something more important. And so when we go to the wilderness, we start to realize, okay, just what matters to him. And I think that there's also something about the wilderness that causes us to okay, I'm going to come at it from this angle. So my dad has fallen in love with the Lord's Prayer over the last couple of years, and it's sort of the thing that he's always like keeps coming back to and keeps, as a loving father, pushing us back to. And But there's when you're praying the Lord's Prayer, like, as he's been sitting with it and looking into, like, the just meaning of different words behind it, there's within the Lord's Prayer, as you're praying it, there's this not just like, "Well, please do this," kinda like, "But if you do, if you don't, it's, just please do." It's not that kind of asking. It's an asking where we are with, like, every bone in our body, not just asking, but, like, demanding God to do what he said that he did, which feels audacious to even say, but where we are, like, going to God and saying, "You have to do this. We need you. We want you. We long for you. You need to bring about your kingdom. You need to bring about your and, just I'm just gonna say, I don't know how much of the kingdom is supposed to come before Jesus returns. But for one, I want to, it's like, give us as much as we can have, and in all these little pockets where we feed the poor and we take care of the homeless and we give water to the thirsty. So it's like I'm not pushing for, like, it's in our power to bring about God's kingdom, and it's just I think that we have a part to play, each one of us, and it's time that we each one of us play it. But what was I saying? Yeah, I don't know, something just along the lines where we are very strongly asking God to do what he said he was going to do. And it's when, like, there's something about those wilderness seasons that really puts that deep in our heart where we are not willing to quit. We're not willing to settle. We're not willing to say, well, whatever happens, happens. Where we start to get extremely invested in in God's name being known and known rightly, and according to the word of God, and that his kingdom would come and that his ways would be made known, like, where we want and we desire and we go after, and we cry when something doesn't come about, and we are heartbroken when, it's like the Beatitudes when starts to play a part in our life, when we let ourselves be invested in his kingdom and his ways and what is on his heart to bring about. And there's this wilderness season where we're like, I'm in, I want to do this with you. And then all of a sudden everything goes backwards, and you're not seeing the results that you expected to see. And then you start thinking, like, well, are my motives right? Am I just off track? Like, what is this? Where am I supposed to settle? What conclusions am I supposed to come to? And I think a lot of the just the wilderness, walking with God, learning to trust him, is not so much about coming to conclusions as much as learning through experience the character of the God that we follow. So my hope with all this is just that you would be encouraged to not quit. And it's sort of like the Syrophoenician woman, such a beautiful story, where she goes after Jesus and asks him to heal her daughter. And he says, "Why would I take the children's bread and give it to the dogs?" And she could have been totally offended and walked away, but instead she said, "But even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the table." And Jesus's heart was totally moved, and he healed her daughter. And it's this like, there's something about when you, like, I'm guessing that the Syrophoenician woman had heard something about Jesus that caused her to have that kind of persistence and tenacity. So it was the combination of what she heard about Jesus, but also when you have a sick child, you're going to do whatever you need to do in order to heal them, or to see wholeness come into their life as much as possible. And so it's that combination of just where your heart is broken, you are raw, you are longing, you are desperate. And I think that Jesus just, he's okay. How do I say it? He wants to, he just, he brings us into those seasons, and he's okay with it. And sometimes that's really hard because I think, I think what's hard about it is it's that it's those hard seasons, the wilderness seasons, they're not the problem. It's the question of, is God with me when I'm in the wilderness? Because I know in my head that he is, but you know how, like, if everything's going good, it's easy to feel like, well, God's with me. And when things aren't going so good, then it's like this, almost like a superstitious way. It's not good, but it's sort of like a superstitious way of walking with God, where we're like, well, if it's going good, that's a sign of his presence or his nearness and his blessing. And if it's not going good, then it's a sign that he's like trying to teach me a lesson, or he's distant, or like I'm out of favor with him. And so I think that, like, that kind of that kind of thinking really gets challenged when you are in those wilderness seasons, because you start to realize, like, he, like, God walks with people when everything's going backwards. And we see that all throughout the Bible. It's like Daniel being thrown into the lion's den. That's totally backwards. That doesn't make sense. And yet God was with him. It's not like, it's not like God's with him, or left him in order for him to be thrown into the lion's den, and then all of a sudden he's with him when it all turns around and goes good again. But I think that, it's like, we know the stories, we know that he's with us no matter what we go through. But in that day to day, when you're in that wilderness, when everything's going backwards, when you're stuck in this place of, I can't go back to what I knew, I want to play my part in God's kingdom, and I want to be part of this, but it's like nothing's going the way I thought it was going to go. And so it's like, I think one of the biggest questions that's on our heart is, am I really with God? Is he really with me? And that is something I'm not going to try to come to wrap that up well for you. That is something that I've had to sit with time and time and time again, and keep on reminding myself, because it's like my natural inclination says God is not with me when it's not going well. And so there's a sweetness within these really hard seasons that drives us back to the cross, to know the character of who God is and what he has done to save us. And before I'm going to start crying if I keep going down that. um, so I would just say, let God do his good and perfect work in you and through you, and don't quit. If there is something that God has put on your heart that you really want to do, but you haven't been seeing it, and you don't know when you're going to see it, you don't know how it's going to end. You don't, like, you could do everything on your part to make it happen. And yet, and you're doing everything you know to do, to trust him, to follow him, to get on page with what matters to him. And yet you don't know the outcome. And for me personally, that is really hard when I can't control that and I don't know. But again, it's that place of tension that causes us to really engage, to pray the Lord's Prayer with intention, where I'm not going to give up until I see what Jesus told us to ask the Father for. I want to see that happen as much as possible. And ultimately, when Jesus comes back, that we're going to see that. And so there's something about these really tough seasons that are so valuable and good and precious in the Christian walk. So after all that, I'm also now going to invite you to grab that On Purpose planner, where I'm going to help you do everything on your part, knowing, like, I know that even if I helped you come up with a perfect plan, let's say you want to start a ministry and you're going to help, give jobs to people who are currently living on the streets and they need help. Like, that's good work. And yet I know that even if I helped you do everything that you knew to do, that still doesn't mean, like, there's still a journey of walking with God, of trusting him, of him opening doors and sometimes closing them. And yet you still do everything you know to do, and you keep on trusting and clinging to him, and like arguing with him the way that the Syrophoenician woman did is so beautiful. The way that she moved his heart. And I think there's a desperation in us that comes in these wilderness seasons that causes us to argue in like the most biblical way, but to argue with God to bring about the wholeness and the restoration that he wants to bring about. So I'm going to leave you with that. So grab the On Purpose Planner in the description below, and as much as possible, let's make your good kingdom work happen. It's the part that you're called to play in God's kingdom, not your kingdom. Sorry, I said that kind of funny. And lastly, remember to read the Bible, get lost in the story of God, and play your part. And I will talk to you soon.